this is Mike, Seder 42 Vinyl. I am going to show you some more metal, but this is going to be from the 80s back, the 80s into the 70s, or really just all the 80s kind of. I don't think there's anything from the 70s in here. So let's get started. I'm going to start with the kind of the only, I guess, hair metal release or glam metal release that I have, and that's Blue Murder, Self-Titles. This is John Sykes' band that he did after he was kicked out of Whitesnake by David Coverdale after, making David Coverdale, playing guitar on one of the greatest albums that Whitesnake has ever put out, really, in my opinion. 1987 release. I love that album, especially side one of that record. It's so heavy, and one of the main reasons I like that album is John Sykes, his guitar tone, the way he plays, his bends, his, wall of sound of the riffs that he came up with, how they just filled up, they fill up the speakers, they fill up the room, and it's just fantastic. He kind of does the same thing here with some digs at Coverdale with some cheesy lyrics on a couple songs, or at least one song in particular. And anyway, some really good stuff here. Yeah, this album is really good. It really is the album that, Coverdale and him could have kind of put out after 1987, but Coverdale went a different way, and, so did Sykes. This might be his last really, really good album too, honestly. But it's a really good record. I enjoy this album a lot. I had this when I was a kid too. I had this back in the day in high school, so I was digging it then as much as I do now. This is Running Wild. This came out in 1989. This is when they're fully into their pirate phase, Port Royale. This is a good record. It's a noise release, so production isn't that great. It's kind of muddy, and, instrument separation really isn't there. It's kind of a wall of sound, but there's some really good songs on here. A lot of gang vocals, really remind you of like Saxon, early Iron Maiden, things like that. Traditional heavy metal here, but Running Wild, pretty good record. It's the only Running Wild record that I have, and I like it. Some thrash metal here. This is Power Mad. This is Absolute Power. Great album, really good album, really good thrash record. The song Nice Dreams has one of the most unique, best riffs, or melodies in a thrash metal song. I love that song. It's one of my favorite just songs from this time period. The rest of this album doesn't live up to that one song, unfortunately, but the rest of the album is good. It's just that Nice Dream stands out as just a fantastic, excellent track. This is a band called EXE. These guys, I'm just gonna show you the picture of these guys because they look amazing. I mean, these guys are fantastic. They were listening to like Exciter, the leather-clad biker thrash metal, exactly what it sounds like. Of course, it's thrash with class, and the lyrics are included. The really good stuff here. The album cover is fantastic as well. Stricken by Might. Pretty good stuff here. It's just more fun than it is, necessary for your collection. Same thing here. This album kind of gets good reviews, and it also, a lot of people say it's overrated, and I would probably be in a little bit of the overrated category for Blood Feast, Kill for Pleasure, but I had this album when I was a kid, and I listened to it more than I normally would because, back then, when you bought a cassette, that was the only album, at least for me, for at least 2 weeks, before I got my allowance again. It was the only new music that I had to listen to for that whole time period. And, I would listen to music every day after school and constantly on the weekends, so whatever cassettes I had, I just would listen to this over and over again. And you tend to listen to your new stuff. So I did listen to this quite a bit, but it never really stuck with me then. And it's pretty good now. I think I appreciate it a little bit more now, but it's still definitely not one of the best thrash metal albums from this time period, but it's good. And the album cover is fantastic. Poster in there. These next 3 albums are cool. I was able to get these all from one bestseller at a record show at the time in 2018 when I was hitting up the record shows. And I got Chastain, Ruler of the Wasteland, Chastain, The Seventh of Never, and Chastain, The Voice of the Cult, which these albums, like, I guess I would probably say they go in order of at least these three, you know, best to worst. But even, you know, Voice of the Cult isn't worst. It's just not as good as these other two albums. But yeah, this is lead singer Leather Leone, female vocals, but very gruff. I mean, you really wouldn't even, you know, notice, you know, that she was a female vocalist because her vocals are so gruff. But, you know, she has some really good screams on here. You know, her vocal style is really, really cool. And, you know, she has style, and I really like that. And Chastain obviously was, I mean, a really, really good guitar player. So there's a lot of noodling on here. But there's also just some good songwriting. And I would just say this is just typical, you know, heavy metal, not necessarily thrash, not necessarily traditional, you know, like Dio-esque or anything like that. But it's just kind of really just, it leans a little bit more towards thrash, I guess. But just good stuff here, good heavy metal. Pretty good. I mean, I would say that, you know, these are all listenable records, but not, I would say not, you know, must-haves or anything like that. This album, I probably would say, you know, if you really like traditional heavy metal, you know, from the early 80s, I like this album. This is Witchfind, and this is Cloak and Dagger. And this is like, it's interesting because this album is so heavy metal the way it looks. You know, it's like just so dark, the imagery and stuff like that. But the music, some of it is just like FM radio rock. You know, there's some really melodic songs on here that are just like kind of driving hard rock songs. So it kind of goes back and forth. You know, the early 80s were, you know, with bands like this, you know, they were almost just experimenting with heavy metal. And this is kind of in the new wave of traditional heavy metal, or new wave of British heavy metal. But yeah, this album I would definitely recommend it. And I got recommended this album, not directly, but, you know, I followed Micah Mott from Arch Enemy. And, you know, he sometimes would post albums that he was buying. He posted this album. He's like, oh, this album is so great, blah, blah, blah. It has all these, you know, cool qualities. And I played it. I was listening to Angel Witch at the time. You know, I was really getting into trying to discover a lot more of these new wave British heavy metal bands from the 80s. And, you know, when Michael Amott from Arch Enemy recommends it, I was like, oh, cool, I'll check it out. And I really like this record. I think it's really good. There's a band called Witchcross that I would say falls in the similar category of these guys. It's also really good. This album is pretty good. It's okay. This is the guitar player More, and this is Blood and Thunder. Blood and Thunder is probably the best song on here, but it's okay. Good hard rock, heavy metal, more traditional heavy metal as well. But, you know, could also just be played on FM, you know, rock as well. It's just, you know, like in that block with Judas Priest, you know, playing a little bit heavier stuff. And finally, this is 1982, Accept, Restless and Wild. This is the other cover, the alternate cover, not the one with the guitars on fire. And yeah, this is just classic. Of course, it has Fast as a Shark, which almost every thrash metal band, you know, said, well, when we heard that song, that was it. We wanted to go, you know, write thrash music. We wanted to write all our songs that fast. And so this is a very important album for thrash metal, because it's what influenced a lot of guitar players to want to play as fast as they could and play as fast as a shark. So that's it for Accept, and that's it for heavy metal. That's it for October 2018. Thank you. Subscribe, like, all that stuff. Thanks. Bye.